All right, let's get right into it. Deep in the forests across the Northern Hemisphere, something doesn't work. It's a silent saboteur. It doesn't use an axe, it doesn't use a chainsaw, but believe me, its impact is just as devastating and way more sneaky.
Just look at this number for a second. 800 million euros. That's the estimated damage every single year in Europe's forests, all from just one type of fungus. We are talking about the culprit behind one of the most destructive tree diseases in the entire world. And today, we're going to put it right under the microscope.
And here it is. This is our culprit, caught in the act, the fungus Heterobasidion annosum. And on this slide, you can see the grim results of its work. You've got the dead conifer, you can see the fungus's little fruiting body popping out at the base, and then inside, well, the wood has just turned into this soft, stringy mess. This is the evidence of its silent, devastating work. So let's officially open the case file on this billion-dollar forest fungus. We're going to dig into what it is, exactly how it operates, and the really complicated relationship it has with the very forests it seems so determined to destroy.
First things first, we need to know who we're dealing with, and it turns out this pathogen isn't just one single thing. Nope, it's more like a whole crime family of specialists, a group of fungi with different identities, and each one has its own favorite target.
This table kind of breaks it down for us. You've got three main groups in Europe. There's the P-type, that's the original H. annosum, and it loves to go after pine trees. Then you have the S-type, now known as H. parviviloporum, which specializes in spruce. And finally, the F-type, or H. abietinum, which, you guessed it, targets fir trees. Each one is a specialist in its own right.
And their territory? It's absolutely huge. This map shows you the reach of this Heterobasidion family, and it's all across the Northern Hemisphere. We're talking North America, all over Europe, and deep into Asia. These fungi are a constant, powerful presence in the world's conifer forests.
So how does this thing actually manage to attack a tree? Well, it's got this really clever and very patient two-stage invasion plan. It starts from the air, but then the real damage spreads silently, right under your feet.
But before we get into its methods, let's be clear on the nature of the crime. Heterobasidion is what we call a white rot fungus. Basically, it eats lignin. That's the tough, rigid stuff that makes wood strong. It leaves behind the pale, soft cellulose, and that is what causes that mushy, stringy decay we saw earlier. So here's the playbook, its modus operandi. It all starts with an airborne assault. Tiny little spores land on the fresh, exposed surface of a cut tree stump. From there, the fungus sets up shop, colonizing the stump and creating a hidden base of operations. Then, it starts to spread its network of mycelium, think of them like roots, through the soil, making contact with the roots of healthy nearby trees and infecting them. And here's the crazy part. It can survive in those stumps for decades, just waiting for the next generation of trees.
This diagram really makes it crystal clear, doesn't it? Spores come in from the air and land on a stump. It's an easy, undefended target. The fungus then basically uses the stump's existing root system as a superhighway to invade healthy trees right next to it. It's a patient, stealthy, and brutally effective strategy.
Okay, so we've seen the big picture strategy, but what about the tactics? Let's zoom way in, down to the microscopic level, and take a look at the molecular weapons this fungus uses to literally dismantle a tree from the inside out. Now, this timeline, which is based on lab studies, shows just how fast and methodical this invasion is. I mean, within 2 hours, spores can latch onto a root. Within just a week, the fungus has already broken through the outer defenses. And by day 15, it's inside the tree's vascular system, that's its circulatory network, and it's starting the whole process of decay. And to do all this, it deploys a really powerful chemical arsenal. It pumps out enzymes that just dissolve the very structure of the wood's cell walls. It produces toxins that help weaken the tree's own defenses, and it uses compounds like oxalic acid to break down wood and neutralize the tree's chemical counterattacks. It's basically a master of biochemical warfare. So, wow, faced with such an effective and persistent enemy, how in the world do we fight back? This is a massive, multi-billion-dollar problem, and forest managers have had to get creative, developing a multi-pronged strategy to try and get it under control.
The whole fight against Heterobasidion really boils down to three main lines of defense. You can manipulate the forest itself, you can use chemical treatments, and, this is the coolest one, you can actually pit the fungus against one of its own rivals.
First up is what's called silviculture, which is just a fancy term for strategic forest management. The most direct approach? Stump removal. You literally dig out the fungus's home base. Other tactics include planting tree species that are less likely to get sick, creating mixed forests instead of just one type of tree to slow the spread, and timing any logging to seasons when the fungal spores aren't as active.
The second method is chemical. Right after a tree is cut, you can treat the stump surface. A really common choice is urea. It raises the pH of the wood, basically making it a really unpleasant and hostile place for the fungus to grow. Another option is borates, which is a type of salt that acts like a direct poison to the fungal cells.
But, maybe the cleverest method of all is biological control. What you do here is introduce a rival fungus, Phlebiopsis gigantea. Now, unlike our pathogen, this one's totally harmless. It's just a decomposer. But when you apply it to a fresh stump, it grows incredibly fast, gobbling up all the food before Heterobasidion can even get a foothold. You're essentially fighting fire with fire, or, in this case, fungus with fungus.
Okay, so we've profiled our criminal, we've detailed its methods, and we've outlined how we fight it. But this story has one final, really surprising twist. What if this villain isn't a villain at all? I mean, after everything we've just seen, the dead trees, that mind-boggling economic cost, it seems like a pretty straightforward case, right? But is this fungus really pure evil? Well, the answer, it turns out, is a lot more complicated than that. Because here's the thing. In a natural forest, Heterobasidion isn't just a destroyer, it's also a creator. By decaying old or weak trees, it recycles essential nutrients that were locked up in the wood right back into the soil. When it kills a big tree, it opens up a gap in the canopy, letting sunlight hit the forest floor so new, diverse plants can grow. And that soft, decayed wood, it becomes a critical home for insects, birds, and all sorts of other wildlife. In its own way, it's an architect of the forest. And that leaves us with this incredible conflict. From our human economic perspective, it's a costly pest that threatens a major industry. But from the forest perspective, it's a key player in the natural cycle of life, death, and renewal. Which brings us to a really tough question. In managing our forests, how do we fight a pest that's also a vital architect of the very ecosystem we all depend on?